In a shocking turn of events, CNN over the weekend published a surprisingly negative piece on Kamala Harris. The piece pointed to so-called dysfunction within her own team after a series of tanking poll numbers. And we weren't the only ones that were surprised that CNN actually published this. Just moments after the piece was published, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki rushed to the defense of Vice President Harris, tweeting, "For anyone who needs to hear it, Vice President Harris is not only a vital partner to President Biden, but also a bold leader who has taken on key important challenges facing the country. But it's hard to say that when she's failed at multiple tasks assigned to her, from the border to jobs, and now this weekend where she struggled to answer basic questions from reporters in Paris." Take a look.
Russia is feeding the U.S. warnings to back off of Ukraine.
I cannot talk to you about classified information, but we, of course, remain very concerned about what's happening there. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
So your strategy is classified. Okay, that's not normally how that works. Well, here is reaction is Michigan Congresswoman and House Armed Services Committee member Lisa McClain. Congresswoman, good to see you again. Let me just ask you, if the Republican conference has to put out a tweet saying Lisa McClain is a vital member of the House conference, how good does that make you feel that you need to be reaffirmed by a tweet?
Not real good. Listen, I'm just glad we didn't get that cackle that she usually has. You know, and I would say this one thing, finally, the president and I agree on something. We both don't think that her leadership abilities are very good. So, I mean, at the end of the day, Sean, all joking aside, this administration is in serious trouble. You know, whether it's an athlete and their coach, whether it's business partners, or whether it's parents, you may disagree behind the scenes, but when that door opens, you have a united front. And clearly, this administration does not have a united front. They can't even get along within their, you know, between the president and the vice president. Yet how in God's name are they supposed to lead the country?
Yeah, that's a great question. Part of the article says this, I want to read it. It says, defenders and people who care for Harris are getting frantic. She's perceived to be in such a weak position that top Democrats in and outside of Washington have begun to speculate privately, asking each other why the White House has allowed her to become so hobbled in the public consciousness, at least as they see it. The interesting thing here, Congresswoman, is it's almost like they think that Vice President Harris should be set up for success through this presidency. Like, that's a role of the presidency to make sure that the VP looks good at all times.
Well, I think your actions and your abilities are what actually make you look good. And listen, with everything that's happened in this short 10 months, you know, you got the border crisis, you got the failed withdrawal from Afghanistan, inflation is up, you got the supply chain issues, you got labor issues. What really is there to make her look good at? And I say this with all sincerity, what really has this administration done to make her look good? I mean, for God's sake, she really hasn't even been to the border. When I've been to the border.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, that's your point is when you do things and you get things accomplished, you look good. It's not someone's job, to Lindsay's point, for them to make you look good, right? And that's the thing that was so funny. On the day that they were passing that infrastructure bill through the House, everyone's making phone calls. She was off touring a NASA facility. I mean, she could have been, I mean, no wonder, because she's not even doing the basics. The CNN article, though, it was funny. It blames racism and sexism for some of the hardship that she's facing since taking office. In the article, it says Republicans and right-wing media turned Harris into a political target from the moment that she was picked from the ticket, and implicit racism and sexism have been constant. People are expecting their historic vice president to make history every day, when in fact she's trying to carry the duties of a second role. Now, I think that was fascinating here is that the folks at CNN have nothing to back this up. They say that somehow everyone on the right is responsible for it, but they don't make any, justification as to how that's true. But let's be fair. She was rejected in her own party's primary process, right? And it wouldn't be fair to ignore race, but at the end of the day, it was Joe Biden who said, I'm picking a woman of color. It was Amy Klobuchar who said that she urged Biden to pick a running mate who was a woman of color, right? Take a listen to what Amy Klobuchar said.
This is a historic moment, and America must seize on this moment. And I truly believe, as I actually told the vice president last night when I called him, that I think this is a moment to put a woman of color on that ticket.
So here's the thing. They're the ones who injected this. They're the ones who said it should be a woman, it should be a woman of color. Then you can't turn around and say Republicans made this a sexist and racist thing when they were the ones who decided that that was the criteria by which she was going to be chosen.
Sean, why are you letting the facts get in the way of a good story? I mean, at the
I know.
end of the, at the end of the day, we are judged by our actions. And don't you notice that every time the Democrats can't beat us on the policy, they use the racist card or the woman card? Last I checked, I was a woman. I identify as a woman, but I don't want you to elect me because of that. Elect me because I'm competent and I can do the job. Elect me and judge me on what I have done, not the color of my skin or the gender. But it seems when I don't do anything and I can't accomplish things that I have to hide behind this racism card. Well, listen, action.
Well, that's what.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You're absolutely right. That's what they have. That's exactly the point. They go to this every time that there's a problem. It's always, that's their default, right? Anyway, Congresswoman, thank you for coming here. I appreciate it. I'll put out a tweet in support of you as a vital partner of this show.
I appreciate that, Sean. That means so much to me. Thank you. Have a good night.
You bet.